I have been waiting to make this video for over a year now. Yes, for over a year, I have looked forward to making this video once and for all, clearing Anthony Powell's name. The flat earth community as a whole has tarnished Anthony Powell's name and his reputation. I am here to restore it. I'm here to make things right. And I sincerely hope that the flat earth community will follow my lead and do the same on their channels and to their audiences. That would be the only right thing to do. So who is Anthony Powell?
My name is Anthony Powell. I grew up on this dairy farm in Taranaki, New Zealand, but I've actually spent most of my adult life living and working in Antarctica.
Raised in New Zealand, Anthony is a filmmaker, photographer, and camera equipment builder. But more importantly, in 1998, he accepted his first job working in Antarctica. And he has been returning to Antarctica ever since. He's actually in Antarctica right now, marking 27 years of routine time spent in a place that most people will never get to see with their own eyes. Now, while in Antarctica, he met someone very special.
Christine and I met down here, and I proposed to her in the winter of 2003. 6 weeks later, we had an impromptu wedding down here on the ice.
In 2003, he married his wife, Christine, in Antarctica. Yes, their actual wedding took place in Antarctica.
The flowers were all handmade with folded paper. Christine's friend Laurie made up a dress from donated fabric, and the plumbers cut us some rings made of brass.
Anthony and Christine have spent over 20 years physically in Antarctica. And part of that time includes 10 winters there, where you cannot leave and you live in months of unending darkness. Now, for years, Anthony captured the beauty and wonder and enigma of this harsh continent. And in 2013, his film, Antarctica: A Year on Ice, premiered for the first time at the New Zealand International Film Festival. His documentary would go on to win 20 international film awards. Now, if you have not seen Antarctica: A Year on Ice, consider watching it with family and friends as you gather for Christmas and New Year's in the coming days. Now, part of his documentary was video of the Antarctic 24-hour sun that he took back in 2008. And this is where the controversy begins. You see, Flat Earth did not come back on the scene until 2014. The modern day Flat Earth movement started 10 years ago in 2014. So when Anthony Powell filmed the 24-hour sun back in 2008, and when he released his film, Antarctica: A Year on Ice, in 2013, Flat Earth was not a thing. But after Mark Braun and Matt Powerland and Eric Dubay started talking about Flat Earth in 2014 and 2015, the Flat Earth ideology began to grow like a wildfire. And as it grew, those who knew we live on a globe started pushing back against them and countering their arguments. And it didn't take long for people to find Anthony Powell's documentary about Antarctica and realize that a 24-hour sun in the South would falsify Flat Earth.
So Brother Paul recommended that I watch this documentary on Antarctica. And it was called Antarctica: A Year on Ice. And he said, you got to watch this. It's really interesting. So I pull this thing up and I start watching it. It was a fascinating documentary where this guy goes through what it's like to live in Antarctica. He lives there year round. And I'm watching on the airplane, and he's going through the fact that in the summer months, the sun never goes all the way down. Well, this guy, I'm watching this film, nothing to do with this foolishness of a flat earth, but I'm watching this film, and I get around, minute whatever, and I nudge Paul, and I said, Paul, this movie just disproved the flat earth. Because I said, this is what the guy does. The guy literally does a time lapse where he points the camera at the sun, and he follows the sun all the way around for 24 hours. He shows the sun go around him, and it kind of goes up and it kind of goes down, but it goes around him.
Now, one thing that flat earthers are really good at is looking at things under a microscope. Figuratively speaking, of course. They'll look at every pixel of a picture, every frame of a video, and someone, I don't know who, noticed that the clouds at the end of this time lapse of the 24-hour sun were the same as the clouds at the beginning. And I honestly give credit to the flat earth community for discovering this. But what happened next was completely uncalled for. What happened next was nothing short of despicable. The flat earth community as a whole decided to create a narrative that fit their preconceived ideas that the earth is flat and there's a worldwide conspiracy to cover it up, and that Anthony Powell must be part of that massive cover-up. And then they immediately began dragging his name through the mud and treating him absolutely horrible.
He documents it. You can watch him.
This is no way to treat a fellow human being. I've come down hard on Globers for how they treat flat earthers, but now it's time for me to do the same with the flat earth community. This is no way to treat someone. Anyone who jumped on this bandwagon against Anthony Powell, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. You call yourselves truthers, but nothing could be further from the truth. Show me evidence that any of you cared about the actual truth as to why this video was edited. All these years, how many flat earthers simply reached out to Anthony to ask him why the clouds repeated at the end? 0. Not one. You know why? Because you are not truthers. No, you are confirmers. I would encourage you to look up the term confirmation bias, because that's exactly what this is. Instead of seeking out an understanding of the truth of why this happened, you immediately came up with a story which fit your preconceived ideas. That is confirmation bias. So that makes you a confirmer, not a truther. When I was made aware of this, because I actually do care about the truth, I did what anyone who wants to know the truth would do. I contacted Anthony Powell. Isn't that what a truther would do? I didn't create my own story of why he must have done this and made sure that my made up story made me feel good about what I already believed and just confirmed what I already believed. No, I'm not a confirmer, I'm a truther. And what I quickly learned was that the editor of the film actually had 36 hours of continuous footage of the sun circling McMurdo Station, and he needed to cut it down to the 24 hours. It's a 24-hour sun. And they wanted to have the aesthetically pleasing mountain in the background be both at the beginning and the end. But because of where the camera started its time lapse, the mountain was only captured once over the 36 hours. So the editor looked for a spot in the time lapse where there were very few clouds in the sky and made a cut there and then wrapped that portion into a loop, a circle, in order to have the beginning and end be that mountain, which would show a full 360 degrees over 24 hours. Not only did I get a perfectly reasonable explanation for this edit, but I also learned something far more important. Anthony had released the unedited footage. So the unedited footage has been on YouTube for over 3 years, and no truther has found it. Or if they did, they haven't said a word about it. This is the problem when you are a confirmer and not a truther. You look for things that confirm your bias, and you ignore things that contradict your beliefs. Anthony and Christine, I'm incredibly sorry for the way you've been treated by the flat earth community. You didn't deserve this, and all anyone had to do was reach out to you as I did. But I will say that despite the way things played out, I am in a way thankful, because had this not happened, we would have never connected and built our friendship. The final experiment would not have succeeded without you. You taught me how to film in the extreme cold for 24 hours straight, which came from your own experience, which I'm sure took many attempts to figure out. I told you from the very beginning that one of my main goals with TFE was to clear your name and vindicate you and your work. I hope this video achieves that purpose. And to showcase your incredible work, everyone should visit antarcticimages.com. And I am so happy to broadcast right now your uncut and unedited time lapse of the 24 Antarctic sun at McMurdo Station that you captured over 16 years ago.